can talk about the project. I think Greg had a question in reference to what it said in the newspaper in reference to alternatives, and so you can just describe what exactly
Sure.
you're gonna do, what exactly we're proposing.
Okay.
That would help.
Sure.
Larry, you might as well just work off of this, because that was gonna go into Betty's record.
Yes, Steve, she's gonna read that into the record.
Yeah.
This is public information meeting. The city of Floresville will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, April 7, 2015 at 6 p.m. at the Floresville City Hall, located at 1120 B Street in Floresville, Texas, to inform the general public of the USDA application for sewer project. This meeting is being held at the request of the funding agency, the USDA Rural Development, to acquaint all interested parties on economic and environmental impact, service area, and alternatives. Engineer, Mr. Larry Knight.
Thank you, Monica. I guess at first I can go through, is that on okay? Everybody hear okay? I guess I can talk loud enough if there's nobody here. The project, first of all, my name is Larry Heimer. I'm with Beery. We are the engineer the city selected for this project, and we have recently completed a preliminary engineering report that describes the need for the projects, and then went through in that report a study of different alternatives, primarily related to the wastewater plant. And then working with city staff, came up with the preferred alternative that we have gone forward with and presented cost information to USDA and to the city related to this low interest loan, and I understand possibly some grant, but it's primarily right now at this point in time a low interest loan to construct these improvements. The project includes the first project, or the first phase, is the improvements to the city's existing wastewater treatment plant located on Goliad Road, a little bit north of 536. And for that project, we were looking at the existing capacity and future growth of the city, and came up with a anticipated or a planned expansion of that plant capacity, which would allow it to meet the needs of the city for the next 30 to 35 years. Typically, we don't go past that period of time, because between now and 35 years from now, the requirements for treatment will change. There'll be new technology, and so at that time, whenever the city reaches that point, there will be other options available, which we'll consider at that time. So it doesn't make sense to try to create a very large plant, much more than you would need beyond 30 or 35 years. The options that we considered were, the first option was to keep the location of the plant where it is now, and using similar type processes, expand its capacity to meet the new TCEQ requirements that are out now and will be coming up in the near future. And that option one, first alternative, would basically reuse as much of the existing plant infrastructure. Several years ago, about 4 years ago, the city completed an expansion, or at least an improvement of that plant that included a new bar screen, headwork structure, and influent lift station, and some other improvements. And at that time, we anticipated growth, and basically those facilities are going to remain as they are. They are sized to handle the anticipated growth, and so the headworks and the influent lift station will basically remain in place. We will expand the capacity or add new capacity for the existing oxidation ditch that's there. Basically, that oxidation ditch was designed back in 1960 sometime under the requirements at that time, and it's been serving doing a great job serving the city since that time. But now it's having problems under heavy rainfall events. The city is having some problems with overflows and things like that. So this new expansion will include two new facilities that will be, basically you can operate the entire plant with only one operating, so there'll be 100% backup, which is important for new plant design. We'll be putting in a belt press, new sludge processing equipment that meets current standards, and will save the city a great amount of money, because right now they spend a tremendous amount of money in hauling off sludge to landfills. They'll still be hauling it off, but it will be drier and less of a volume and weight involved with it. Then we'll be doing other improvements related to technology of controls, SCADA systems, which will allow the operators to monitor the plant's operation 24/7, whether they're there at the plant or not, and we'll just be able to advise them of the conditions that are occurring at the plant, whether they're there or not. So that'll help them greatly, where they can feel more comfortable about how the plant is operating. Anyway, that's option one, basically, and the expansion will go from the average plant flow that's permitted right now is 900,000 gallons per day. The new plant will have an average flow capacity of 1.2 million gallons a day, but the big difference between the existing plant permit and the new plant permit will be the ability for the new plant to handle the peak flows, which now we're required to have a multiplier of 4 over the average flow to handle peak flows. So that, in effect, increases the capacity of the plant by 300% with our new improvements. Option 2 was simply the same type of, we were going to improve the facilities there at the plant, but we're going to go with a package type unit, which is something that's prefabricated, brought into the site, and has all of these oxidation and clarification type components as part of a package plant. And that was just an alternative we considered to see if it would work for the city, but very quickly we determined with all the infrastructure that has already been placed and installed that meets this new capacity we're trying to achieve, it didn't make sense to go with that option. And the third option was kind of a more of a far-fetched plan. Do we want to keep the plant where it is now or move it someplace else? And so we looked at different locations we might move it to, but keep in mind, everything at the city now flows to the current location. The discharge permit is at that Lodi branch tributary to the river. And so to move a plant to a new location, you've got to go through an extensive permitting process, plus buy the land, plus somehow take the waste that goes to that location and move it across country to the new plant location. So very quickly that option did not seem to be feasible. So the first option was the one we are proposing to go forward with. It does include 2 new clarifiers. Again, everything we're doing is, we're doing 2, so the city has 100% backup. So if one system goes down, they can still handle the flows while they're maintaining that oxidation chamber or the clarifier chamber. So the project, the wastewater plant cost, got some rough estimates here. The wastewater plant project, the wastewater plant is about $5.9 million. That's the whole total cost of the project. And one other component to this that I didn't mention earlier, but we are also looking at 2 existing lift stations that serve different parts of the city that do not meet current standards. And so we have included those lift stations to basically replace the existing lift stations where they are now, but to bring them up to current standards and to be able to handle the flows that are currently going to those locations, plus some expansion capacity. But the lift stations, the 2 lift stations, the one is located out on Highway 97 West. It's right off of the road there where the old track alignment was, the old railroad track alignment was. And the other lift station is located on Pajarito Creek at 181. And with those 2 lift stations, the one at Pajarito Creek pumps into the system that goes into the lift station there on Highway 97. And both those lift stations did not meet current standards. They had capacity, they weren't overflowing, but they don't meet the current standards related to emergency power and larger wet wells and pumps and things like that. That's about $700,000 for those 2 lift stations, and that includes generators and larger pumps and larger wet wells and things like that. And so the total cost of that first project or first phase, which includes the wastewater plant and the 2 lift stations, is about $6.6 million. Now, also, we had looked at another set of projects that the city needed because of this opportunity to get funds for the project. That included some improvements to some of the key areas of the city's existing collection system. Those projects include a segment of sewer main that was probably built 40 to 50, 60 years ago that is located on Goliad Road, that goes into the plant and extends then to the north up Goliad Road. It picks up the flow coming from the Riverbend subdivision and then turns and goes to the east to replace lines that flow into it that basically serve the high growth area up around 181 going up north along 181. And so those lines were old, need to be repaired. There was infiltration issues there. They flow and that line crosses Lodi branch at several locations. And so those are points of inflow and infiltration that are going to be addressed by this new line. And the other line starts at the Highway 97 lift station and goes goes east along Highway 97 and serves that older part of the city that's kind of behind the old hospital area, and will eventually pick up flow coming from the Powerito Creek lift station. Again, these two line segments, we did a sewer model for the city this past year, and those two line segments were shown to be at, they weren't overloaded yet, but they were at capacity. Plus, because of their age, we think there's a lot of infiltration occurring in those two lines. And those are lines that range in size from, right now they're probably 10-inch, 12-inch lines, and we're going to upsize them to 15 or 18-inch line size so they can meet the current and some future capacity needs of the city. And those two line segments are in the collection system, and the total cost for those is about $2.8 million. Those are in existing city streets, so there'll be street repair costs and other costs associated with that, but we'll reconnect services that tie into them and also the lines coming in from the sides. So the total cost of the total USDA application is about $9.4 million. And the schedule at this point in time, we've completed all the work related to the application that USDA needs, and we anticipate receiving, approval from USDA probably by the end of this month, middle of next month, and at that point we'll start the actual design of this work, and we anticipate that will probably take about 3 to 4 months to go through that process. Then during that same period of time, we'll be making applications to TCEQ regarding the discharge permit amendment that we need to go through to be able to go to the next capacity level for treatment. And that'll be occurring about the same time as we're doing our design. And then we expect to bid the project by the end of this year, probably in the December, beginning of January time frame. Once the bids come in, we have the lowest qualified bidder. That information then goes back to USDA to get the actual funding agreement set up to get the funds to be able to start construction. So construction will start February of next year, 2016, and we'll probably go about 12 months. And our plan is to have 2 construction contracts, one for the wastewater plant and the 2 lift stations under one contract with one contractor, and then the wastewater collection system improvements would be a separate contractor because they're different kinds of construction. The plant work is typically, there's a type of contractor that does that work, and then there's another type of contractor that does the trenching and the work related to relaying lines. So that's why we have 2 different contracts there. So that's our plan. We anticipate the project being completed probably the first quarter of 2017. I know that sounds a long ways off, but before you know it, it'll be here. It's going to be important to move forward as quick as we can because the city is growing, and that plant, the staff is is spending a great amount of time and energy maintaining it. It's had several problems recently, and we need to get this project underway as quick as we can. So, hope I answered your questions. If you have any others, please let me know, but there's definitely a need here.
Questions? Can you put the expansion, you're talking about 900,000 gallons a day into 1,200,000 gallons a day. Can you put that in perspective as far as population?
It's from a standpoint of your normal rules of thumb on how many gallons per connection. That equates to probably the 1.2 is about between 200 and 300 gallons per connection per day, and that's probably about 4,000 connections, maybe 5. I can give you a more exact number, but I think it's the number that like San Antonio Water Systems uses is a little bit less than 300 gallons per day per connection. And we have a permit, this is average flow, and we have a permit that we're going after at 1.2. So 300 times 4,000, I believe, is 1.2, so it's about 4,000 connections. And that's, again, households. Each household may have 3 to 4 people involved with it. I mean, so and that varies depending on restaurants, hotels, and things like that too. So there's a wide range of different uses associated with that 4,000 connections. But I don't know from a standpoint of number of connections y'all have now. Is it probably 2,000?
We have 2,800
Okay,
plus the commercial
right.
that we're supposed to.
Right, but again, the average flow rate that's used is probably somewhere between 250 gallons to 300 gallons per day, and that will probably equate to, anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 equivalent connections.
Well, I mean, I think the population of the city is estimated somewhere around 700,000. Is that 7,000, I mean?
Yeah, 7,000.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, we have to also take into consideration other things. There's still a lot of old pipes in the city, and there's a lot of inflow and infiltration still coming in, so we just can't. There's also a big part of that capacity is equates to inflow and infiltration, which is a common issue with most cities. And the city is working, and will work on a program to eventually address all those lines, but it does take time.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to make sure our plant has the capacity to handle that issue as time goes on. And so we just can't simply design it just simply to handle the population.
Second question on to ask is, will that affect the license requirements of the operators out there by increasing this plant size?
No. In my opinion, I don't think it does. I mean, Andrew, I don't know if you've heard anything of that. That's not necessarily my area of expertise, that the licensing of plant operators. So I probably can't, I would anticipate
We can
your
have
license now
C and
to,
B license operators. We can have C license and B license operators.
And B license, do we have a B license operator out there now?
I'll be going to one this coming year, and a couple of operators are going to do the same as well.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's something that I can't really answer that question really well because I'm not familiar with the licensing requirements for your operators.
No, I think the state has some requirements as far as that goes up, and I'm happy you're going to be doing that.
Right. No, I think as you said earlier, we were talking about the plant. I mean, the plant is functioning. It's meeting the discharge permit requirements. It's just that it has a lot of maintenance issues that's creates a big load on the city staff, and they're doing probably the best anybody can do to keep on top of that. But it's just an old. Many of the pieces of the plant were built back in the 60s, and that's 55 years ago. Some of that stuff, and so it's time for it to be replaced, and this project will hopefully address all those requirements and make the plant operation, the maintenance, much easier. It'll be the way we're going to be designing it will be to minimize plant operator maintenance. The type of right now the city has a racetrack oxidation ditch which has a lot of maintenance issues. It's the way it was. That was kind of the technology back in the 60s to do that. But the way the area works with that type of facility, there's a lot of maintenance problems. And this new plant will kind of have a state-of-the-art system that basically does the same thing but much more efficiently and with much, much less maintenance cost.
Another point is, I know if you improve these lift stations, especially the one by 97, well, that'll open up development on the south side of the city, between 181 and Business 181. A
Sure.
lot of land out there. There's a lot
Sure.
of expansion that is possible in this city.
Right, these two lift stations basically handle that area. That's kind of 181 area. So these are, you know, two existing lift stations that really, just because of their, they met standards many, many years ago, but over time, you know, TCEQ has increased the bar from a standpoint of requirements of emergency power and backup capacity and storage capacity. And so that's why it's so important to get these two new lift stations put in.
I have one last question.
Sure.
What about some of the old sewer pipes in town?
Well, that's a continuing program the city has to stay on. As you know, I think they're working with Sarah in a lot of cases to test and do video testing of these lines to see where the real problems are. But you know, a lot of the lines probably in downtown are 50 years old, and those over time have to be replaced. I know several years ago there was a large project done that replaced the line that serves most of the downtown area. It started at 3rd and E and went up to the rural right away and went over to the plant. And so that line there was replaced probably 15 years ago by the city, which needs, you know, has a newer pipe and newer manholes, and so that was an important step back then. But they're still, from that point, going into the downtown area, you know, a lot of those pipes are clay pipe, and over time they just need to be replaced. That's going to be on.
This program, the money for this program is not going, that's
No,
another
it's not.
obligation of the city on the future.
No, this will be, the rest of the lines in the city, there'll have to be a program developed for the city, does what they're doing now, and just testing, determining where the real problem areas are, so they can kind of can estimate where the next project needs to be. I know the city has applied for grants from time to time as they become available, and they'll continue to do that. And those grants for like through the community development or CDBG grants typically aren't very large. They're the $250,000 to $300,000 size, and so those kind of projects are, you know, the replacement of smaller lines within the city. Those are ideal grants that can be used to address those problems.
Just questioning?
Sure.
Yeah, I got here a little late, I thought it was at 6:30. But, what is your guys, what is your function as far as gonna work with the city, or who are you?
Well, my name is Larry Heimer. I've kind of served as city engineer for probably the last 20 years, maybe longer. I was born and raised in Floresville, so I lived here in Floresville. Kids went to school here in Floresville up until when they graduated. Because my work was in San Antonio, I moved to San Antonio, but I've been working with the city for a long time and kind of understand a lot of their problems. But again, I'm a professional engineer. I'm a principal with a company called Beery. We do public sector projects like this one, or private sector projects throughout this area in Texas. We actually have offices in all the major cities of Texas. And so we have a lot of technical support with what we do, and a lot of experience in what we do. And so basically our role will be to design, as things go forward and get approved by the city and USDA, we will then go forward and design the plant expansion, the lift station improvements, and the collection system improvements. That'll involve surveying, doing existing conditions type maps, developing the plans, working with city staff, TCEQ, which is the regulatory authority to design the plant and the collection system improvements that will meet the city's needs and be permitted. And then we also, after the design is done, basically that's construction documents, we will then be working with the city to bid the project out, helping them with the bid process. We'll hopefully get a number of bids from qualified contractors that we can then choose from, and then typically the process is to select the lowest qualified bid. And at that point in time, USDA is involved with that process when the low bid is selected, and that's when the actual funds are allocated.
Through the city?
The USDA to the city, and then the city will then pay their contractors to do the work. We will also be involved during construction. We will have on-site construction representatives to monitor construction, to make sure that there's good coordination between the city as they continue to operate their plant during this process. And then we will be making sure the contractor is following the plans and getting the project done.
Is there a design in place already?
No,
There's no design at all?
no, there's a preliminary design report has been done, a preliminary engineering report's been done. That's been the basis to develop these costs.
And that's where the engineering comes in with the lift station, what's required, and then
Yes.
what is the minimum that we can get away with and stuff?
That's correct, yes.
If you take into account, I know there's other, I know a few years ago, the soya plant was built, and they put in a lot of effort into making it one of the best in the city of San Antonio. I would like y'all, I know if you take a peek at their system, is how it's, what they did, and how they, the amount of people they service, and, and the population, the speculating the population growth,
Sure.
and that, taking into that, taking into account that aspect. And also, before the design goes in place, there's a lot of options, like there's a lot of property around the area that maybe it could be pushed further away from the city limits. I mean, away from the residential areas. And there's other property that's where it's got to eventually flow to the river, right? Is that what the process is?
Right.
Right. They're gonna purify the water.
Yes.
So I would like, thinking thoughts into that.
Yes. Well, earlier in my discussion here, we did go through and look at the option of relocating the plant to different locations. From where it is now. Right now, it's located on Goliad Road, a little bit north of Trail Street.
But isn't that the best situation, accordingly, because of the geographical location?
Yes, that's why it was built there originally. That's where kind of the natural, most of the
Yes.
city flowed to that area.
Yeah.
But we did look at, the issue here in Floresville is the San Antonio River creates a pretty huge kind of a barrier to develop because of the floodplain.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're right in the edge of the floodplain where the plant is now. And there's actually several years ago, the city constructed a berm to protect that plant from a flood event. And as part of this project, with all the new equipment that we're going to be putting in, the new structures, we're going to be placing them at an elevation that'll be above the 500-year floodplain.
Yeah.
Right now, everything we have there now is about a 100-year floodplain. And so there'll be, all the new equipment that we put in, the electrical controls and such, will be at an elevation above the 500-year floodplain. And that's a requirement of the USDA.
And that's gonna take a lot of the expense.
Right.
And also, the process of filtering the sewers, the sewer water and all that, can we not go to the minimum and try to get it in the middle range as far as, the technology? Looking to that, not getting, because I don't know what they say, what is it, they float it up in the air and it, kind of like dispenses back and, the process, is that part of the process that they do?
Yes, I mean, we're going to, we have to meet the minimum discharge permit requirements, which is regulated by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Right now, the city's discharge permit allows them to discharge an average flow of 900,000 gallons a day or a peak flow of 1.2 million gallons a day. That's what their current plant is permitted for with certain treatment standards. With our new expansion, we're going to go up to an average of 1.2 and a peak of 4.8, I believe it is, because that's the new standard. They want a much higher peaking factor from the average to the peak because of storm events and other things like inflow and infiltration. But the new plant is going to be designed to meet those new standards, which we have to meet.
Yeah.
we're not doing anything more than we have to, but although we are going to design a plant that will meet those, as a minimum, will meet those standards, in all probability, most of the time it will exceed those standards. But again, we're not going to, we can't afford, these things are very costly. I mentioned earlier, the cost of this plant is about $5.4 million as far as cost to extend it. And so it's important to design a plant that meets the current standards.
Could you build, it's gonna take the intake for the present, and then as we get the money later on, we can, go further with the expansion of the project. We build high tech, and as time goes by, we're gonna allocate maybe 5 years down the road, we're gonna go into another phase of the construction, and we get a top-rated plant.
Sure.
Is kind of
See,
something?
4 years ago, we did the hip. We got new water screen and new wet well and new response to be ready for this new construction that's now gonna be the back end. The back end is gonna be, there was a lot of studies done between the Fuse Air and the carousel. Running right now, the carousel is probably the best solution right now. With the new technology and things that you can tie into, such as the SCADA system and others, things like that, that will bring it up to, you may be saying the soil, this will be the state of the art
Are
operation.
you got knowledge into the system?
Yes, I run the treatment plant.
Are you ready?
Well, Larry, I think
Person to say
Good
something?
presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Any questions?
okay.
Do you know the question, Mr. Harmon, if you can indicate the time?
Yeah, well, the time frame I mentioned earlier is, we expect to receive a document from USDA here around, I think it's understanding the date's been moved back to May 11th, I believe, but it's
We don't have the date for the official announcement as of yet.
Right.
But we will be posting it when it's actually official, that they're gonna have the official announcement. We're gonna call this hearing to a conclusion at 6:42,
6:43.
6:43, and we just ask that everyone sign in so that we can say who was here if you haven't signed in. And thank you, Mr. Harmon, for your presentation.
sure.
Thank you. That's it? Okay.
Larry,
Nice to meet you.
yeah,
Yes.
I just looked at this.
I'm sorry, was it
7,000 today, 5,000.
I'm just saying, when you live in the city, you gotta
Oh, I approve. Thank you very much.
No, I did call the hospital.
Oh, hi. Nice meeting you. Going to school over here?
Yes. I will get that tomorrow and get that from her.
You done with me, or?
Because today was the meeting, everything else has been
Or anything else.
run.
The way we run it.
We also have to be capable of having an expansion. No residents coming in.
Environmental thing, I was done.
I can hear you on that license.
I did only
All right.
have some paper, I needed to get
That one, there's 30 days on that one.
April 17th.
I know every once in a while,
So,
like the,
So you can get that information to her.
Because that's the only two, just this one and that environmental one, right?
yeah.
That was the only two.
I think that's just a notice, where there's not really a public meeting with that.
No, not with that environmental, just the one, because that was the one that had the premise, so we couldn't have it in the document. Had to be an ad in the.
So anyway, okay, all right. I'm Larry Hammer.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, shoot, didn't turn.